And now we have our pitch here, so we increase this a little bit. And now it's a way too much, so listen to it now. It sounds just, I don't know, like, I don't know, like destroyed or something. So it's a little bit hard to get a good value here. So what I would suggest you to do is you go to mod sources and you have your tabs here for all your envelopes and your LFOs as well. And there is this this amount drop down menu here, and you can just click this and decrease the whole amount of the LFO, and this will make it a lot more smooth. Like it's pretty good like this. Maybe we can increase the rate a little bit. Now you start hearing it. So you just want to get a tiny little bit of that in the end. Alright, cool. So let's add some effects directly. I will pick the echo here. Perfect. Let's do it like that. Increase the feedback a little bit. Dotted eighth rhythm is great. And let's also insert a reverb afterwards. So also the delay particles, they get also reverberized in the end. So let's increase the decay a little bit. Add a little bit of low cut. And I just realized that they cut it. They put away the quality settings knob, which is pretty cool, I guess. Okay, let's have a listen. A little bit too much delay. A little bit too much feedback. Yeah, now it's cleaner, it's not mudding up so much. Alright, perfect. So let's just have a listen to what we have now. Perfect. So that sounds good to me. So now let's start by applying the rules we just made up and try to go in our practical sessions and do some Solfair style arps by ourselves. So let's just duplicate this MIDI channel over here, this MIDI clip, so we don't lose it. And I will just delete those notes. And as we know, as I said, we have like this G sharp minor over B here. And I mean, if you just, in your case, if you have like a bass line, so this is, wait, I will just call this bass. So if you have like a bass line, if you're B, then I told you about those consonant and dissonant intervals, and then you can go and pick more consonant and more dissonant intervals that you can stack on top of your bass line in the end. So this is how I would approach this note picking process at that moment. Okay, so we remember we had like the first note was like kind of an offbeat note, and then we had only syncopation, so there was no note that was playing on the first 16th note of the quarter notes. So this is something we have to watch out for. And then we had this octave jump at the very beginning. So let's do an octave jump as well. And then he was going down like a fifth or a fourth, so let's do that as well. So maybe we just, I think this one is coming a little bit too late. I think it should come on this position here. And then I think he just copied it over like this. And then he just copied over the whole thing. So this could be like a basic idea. And now we can just try it and fool around a little bit with our notes. We don't have to do exactly the same octave jump here in the beginning, and we don't necessarily have to go down a fourth here. We can also go down maybe a fifth or a different interval here. All in the scale, of course. So this is something now you can really feel free and be creative with this. So let's just start by just alternating some of those notes and see if it works, and if not, that's totally okay, then we can stick to what we have now. So maybe we just change the first note, go up to the major third of the B. So So now it sounds very majory. I think I don't really like this, so let's go down again. Play with the middle notes. I like this vibe, that's pretty cool. So let's adjust, let's just copy this over here. And now he made like this fill in here in his example. So we just add a note here. Boom, boom. So this is what what my mind is telling me to do is now I'm just hearing some notes that could work out here. But what I did was pretty simple. We have our top note here, and this is, in our example, it's not changing here. And we talked about this earlier, so if you leave the highest note as a frame and you're not moving it too much, it really can make sense, and it can give some clear structure to what's happening inside your arp. So if you have the lowest note and the highest note, they're not alternating too much, except if they're really clashing like with your harmonic content, and then you're just more like varying like the melodic content that is like right between those two. This is what happens here as well. We can just do like kind of like, so if you watch those notes and then those notes and then those notes, they're kind of playing a melody dum, bum, bum, in their like in this voice. So if you watch them like as a single voice, you know, they would play like this kind of a melody there, which could make sense in this case. Remember. So I'm hearing this note now. So let's just copy this over. As I said, you try to get that inner voice loud, okay? If you feel a certain drag somewhere, if a note should go down or up, or it should be deleted, then delete it. And this is your inner voice that you should like embrace, okay? Okay, maybe we're trying to alternate something in the last bar. Let's just transpose this up and this down here and have a listen how it sounds now. So we're in the G sharp minor, so now I'm just, when I'm not sure what to do, I will, like, my concept is to go back to the harmonic chord set that we have, and then I can rely on that a little bit more than on my inner voice. So it's always a back and forth. I know theoretically what I'm doing, but I also have a feeling of what I want to do, and you can get this feeling by really just doing this all the time. And I think especially doing something wrong can help a lot. So you also get a feeling for what sounds wrong, or what sounds wrong is actually the wrong word here, but what sounds dissonant and what sounds consonant. Because I made the experience by myself that when I started making music for like 10 years ago, I didn't had a good feeling for what sounded consonant dissonant. I really just couldn't hear consonants and dissonance. So I'm doing ear training, just, you go to a piano, you just make a VST and you play random notes and then you just try to sing them. And this guys and girls, this helped me so much. I cannot stress this enough. But it's a little bit boring. But really, if I could give you one advice, it would be make ear training. All right, so let's have a listen to what we have now here in the end. Nope. Maybe we have to go down. So this is just fooling around a little bit. Dun, dun. Okay, yeah, I think it works. It both could work out. Let's play a little bit with the synth. Let's increase the dry and wet amount of the echo. Ooh, ping pong makes it super stereo. Maybe a little resonance here. Not too much. Sounds super good. Really, this delay is making so much difference. I will just bypass it for a moment. Like, all the dreaminess is gone. And we didn't even like set it up properly. Let's just do a little bit of a low cut here, so we don't muddy up anything in our lows. 200 Hz should work out pretty well. I mean, I would, like in general, if I want to be fast and I just want to set it up like this, I would do it like just as an insert effect. But of course, you should, in the end, if you're mixing it all properly, you should like make sense with your echoes, whatever echoes you use, it doesn't really matter. Just to have the opportunity to affect those effects again and to really properly EQ them. Maybe we can make like this this whole sound a little bit more fluffy. So we just go to envelope 2. And what I mean by fluffiness, I mean this is not a certified name for what I am describing, but is if we would just increase this envelope 2 attack a little bit, it gets like this, you know, it's, I don't know, it just reminds me a little bit of a fluffy thing. Let's have a listen to that. Maybe we just increase the envelope 2 amount a little bit more so the effect gets more clear. Yeah, you know what I mean? Yeah. Fluffiness incoming. Too much? So if you go over a certain value, the attack will be too long and it will kind of mess up a little bit your groove, your timing. So listen to that. So if I put this like over, I think it was 40 milliseconds, it starts sounding a little bit too out of sync. Now, it's not in time anymore. I think around 20 is good. So let's decrease our envelope 2 amount a little bit. Great. So this could be like our first example. So let's just keep this and let's do another one. Why not? So let's delete this, hit Command, Shift and M to create a MIDI clip. Okay, it's green now, perfect. We're still in our right scale. And then we will just use those rules again. And maybe now we will really start on a note that maybe could not fit with our first chord. And then we will just, so we can do something wrong and then fix it afterwards. So let's start. I mean, we're in this chord G sharp minor over B. So maybe an E shouldn't work out that well. So let's try it with an E in the beginning. So we have our first note coming on the offbeat as we analyzed in his example. So I will just turn this off for a moment so we don't have to listen to this annoying artifacts. So we have our octave jump and then we're going down a fourth or a fifth, always staying on our 16th notes here. So now you can clearly hear that this is the wrong note. Right? So this A sharp it's not fitting at all. So we will now just try to make it fit. Now it feels at home. And I mean, the E, it's okay, but it's not really pleasant. So let's just fool around with that a little bit more. Alright, so the G sharp is working out pretty nicely here because we are in our G sharp minor chord, which I analyzed before. So let's just do our octave jump there, transpose this up to a G sharp, and now let's have a listen. And as I said, he's just like copying over this part here, but getting rid of this lower note here. Boom, boom, bum, bum. Then he's just duplicating that theme over and over, and now we can add this little note as a fill-in here. This note is not working out anymore, so we need to adjust this. So let's turn on our pre-listen mode here again. Just fooling around here. Yep, that's working. So when I try to fit notes into my harmonics, I always try to go as little steps as possible. So this is why I could have tried several notes here. Tried this note and this note and this note here, but I think it's good if you start with smaller changes in the beginning. So yeah, we're kind of having a good melodic line in there. So at least that's what I want. Cool. So let's have a listen to this. Now we need to duplicate this again. Get rid of this fill in here. And then let's just duplicate the whole 2 bars. So the bass line is playing this note, and because the bass line is playing this note here, I hear this note is it wants to resolve into that note. So I think this is why it's working out at that moment, or why my perception is like that. So let's have a listen to this. Now it makes sense. Now I have to copy it over again. G sharp minor in the end. Let's see if this is fitting. Yeah, so I think like if it's totally the same in the end, it's a little bit boring. Yeah, maybe like this. So why is this working? Why is this B working, and why isn't the A working that well? Because now have a listen with the B. Now have a listen with the A sharp. I mean, it's also working, but I think this B is more stable. And that's because it's the minor third of this G sharp minor chord that we are in. And this is why we can also leave our D sharp here. It's just the fifth of our chord there, and those notes, they don't really matter, and they're perfect. So this is the root note down there. Alright, so let's have a listen to this. We could do like this kind of fill theme that we have here. We always have it here on the 1 and here as well. We could do that here as well, but maybe a little bit higher or much higher. Either exactly with this note that's playing here, getting played here, or with a note that fits this harmonic context here. But we will see. Let's have a listen to this. I don't know. Let's transpose it down a little bit. So we are in a G sharp minor over B. D sharp should work out. And I mean now, like the more important part is how it comes back. So if we listen to this like turnaround phrase here. It's the same note as this one, and that's why it sounds a little bit boring. Let's have a listen to our like loop points again. Yeah, could work out. Let's go down a little bit more, just trying around here. Yeah, I think this one works out pretty well. Alright, perfect. So this is pretty cool. Okay, I wanna add another like layer of detail to our synth, and this is something we can do by enabling the velocity sensitivity to our filter. And we can do this under our drop-down menu here under MPE. And now you see there's this velocity drop-down menu here. So if we go down to our filter, we see we can just add a little bit of velocity sensitivity to our filter 1 frequency. So the more velocity our node has, the more the filter will be open. And the less velocity it has, the more close it will be. And this is how we can create some like small and ghost notes, like a drummer would play, or even like guitar players and piano players and all kind of instrumentalists do in their play. And this adds just interest and a little bit more grooviness to our synth line. So let's just go back into our MIDI clip and let's just add some notes here and there, applying some rules that I will tell you now. Alright, so let's open up the MIDI clip and let's just zoom in into our first bar here. Alright, so I think velocity sensitivity makes a lot of sense if you're playing ghost notes that are close to your other notes. So for example, here in the beginning, a note could work out, for example, this point, and then we just drag down. Now you can hear it's super close now, and we could copy this over by hitting Option and just dragging it here. So I'm just trying to get like a sidekick for our main note there. Maybe we should like decrease the overall envelope 2 amount on our frequency so it's not opening up the whole filter that much. Maybe a little bit less even. And now let's increase the frequency here. And I think we could do like a little run here, so like the notes are running up to this one again. So let's just copy a note here. And another one here. I'm just kind of doing this randomly, and then we will see if it fits from the pitch. So not thinking about that too much at the moment. I think it's closed down too much. And also we have a little bit of a problem because because we set our synth to mono, it's really cutting away those opened up notes that we dialed in before those ghost notes, and this is it's just stopping there. So this is nothing I want at this moment. So I will just deactivate the mono here, and now we have this drop down menu here, and I would suggest you to use the 2 mode, so you can use 2 notes at a time. And now they start to overlap a little bit. This is why we have to go to our mod source amp section and just decrease the release time a little bit. So they can overlap, and I mean at max they will overlap 2 notes because we set it to 2, but we don't want them to be that long. Just will decrease the decay of envelope 2. All right, so I think this is working out pretty well. So let's start by dialing in more ghost notes. We can also make like ghost note rhythms, you know. So we could say, okay, before every G sharp here, before every of our highest notes, there will be a ghost note. So we would add a ghost note here. And now you have to be very sensitive about this. You can hear it. And you should be able to hear the note, okay? Otherwise it makes no sense. So just a little bit below there. Let's just also adjust those notes here. Alrighty. Getting there, people. Whoop. Maybe we could even try to go a little bit higher. Okay. We're not really hearing this because it's off on our kick position and it's closed down too much. So let's just increase this a little bit more. Okay, cool. So again, here we can add another ghost note. And you know, with this velocity sensitivity, you can add ghost notes, but you can also go in the other direction. So if you want to emphasize a certain note at a certain position a little bit more, you can increase the velocity. So we can do both parallel, and then we can really like shape our whole ARP line. So if we say we want to like increase this second 16th note here in our first quarter, we could do that. It would get a little bit more groovy. But if we say, okay, we don't want it too busy or too groovy, we can also decrease this again and then just emphasize this offbeat note here. That's the low one. So now I'm hearing something more crazy here. So something that can really open up a lot. And then we'll just select those notes and just make them a little bit quieter. Let's see if this works out the way I want. Okay, we have now there's a problem here. We have one note here and one note here, so let's delete this one. And let's just go with this one note, so we don't fuck up our basics and ARP structure. Sorry. And this is something now you can really bring in complexity and variation into your synth. And you can spend a lot of time. My friend Felix Raphael, he's really one of the guys who's making the nicest ARPs, and he's working like this a lot. He's had a lot of like also different ARP sections that play together, but also with velocity sensitivity, and then a lot of notes here, and there's a ghost note, and then there's here a little fill in and all that stuff. Here it's the same thing. Training routine is the most important one in this one, and you will find your own style if you do it. So just go apply those basic rules in the beginning for this style of an ARP, and then you can add ghost notes later on. So I would say let's continue by adding some ghost notes here and there. I will just do this real quick. So I'm just trying different notes here. It don't really matter which ones, but always before this G sharp position here. Alright, so now we have to put on a ghost note here. Maybe we can go up again here, maybe then down again, so we don't like use the same pattern all the time. This could be a little bit problematic because of the half step here. And if the half step is repeated by the delay, it sounds sometimes a little bit weird or too dissonant for my taste. Sounds cool. And now you can go on forever and ever and ever and ever. And we can even make this arp more complex just by adding in more notes, playing with the velocity. Maybe here. So there's nothing going on in this bar, so maybe we can add something there. I don't know if it's working. I'm just like putting the notes in there, trying to do as much syncopation as possible and filling the blanks. And if there's something too much or a note that is wrong and sounds really like dissonant, then we can just adjust it. I think this one is too much. Oops. Here. We could like emphasize this note every one bar, like so. It's too much, you know? Arps, another rule of thumb would be you have like a basic theme and that's staying the same, and you try to have like a good structure in that, and that's always hearable and audible. And then you just add velocity sensitive notes here and there and emphasize certain points also with velocity, or just by opening up the filter automation you can do whatever you want. But I think this combination out of something that is fixed and something that is like cooperating and like it's just like side kicking this fixed arp is a pretty cool technique to make those things. So this is opened up too much. It's just popping out for me too much. So this would be the note that we have to emphasize if we want to stick to this pattern that every second of those notes here is getting emphasized. So this is just taste in the end, but you can spend a lot of time on this kind of stuff, and I think it's fun. So really don't rush too hard here. That was a wrong note. You can hear the wrong notes better if you open up the filter. But it sounds so fluffy and nice now. Alright, cool. So this is a good transition point to our background ARP that we will create, and which is also like one of the main ARP topics in this course, in this ARP section of the course. So now we've made up like our main lead ARP here, and of course we could go and like just right click here, duplicate this time, and then if you want to arrange this kind of ARPs, you can just automate a couple of parameters here, just going up with the filter in the end of each, 8 bars, and then opening up again. So this is something you would do with a main lead ARP. Let's just quickly have a listen and we go back to the background ARP. And now you would now you open it up and then you come in with another hi-hat layer or another clap layer or something like that. So those are like those main lead ARP style sounds and how you make them up. And as I said, the primary aspect of those sounds is that they're very upfront. They will open up over time and they're not just complementing something. Background ARPs, the ones we are going to have a look at now. Background ARPs, they're like the primary aspect of a background ARP is basically that it's not doing too much. It's just like making a harmonic and rhythmic and melodic glue in your track. This is something you can hear pretty nicely in the remix from Adam Port and for Cubicolor No Dancers, and I wasn't able to recreate it unfortunately. But I think I got some of those tricks he's using. And so primary aspect of a background ARP style synth line is that it's not opening up too much. It's very in the background and just supporting the whole harmony and the whole track. So if we just duplicate this channel for a moment and make this, call this the background ARP, let's just mute this one and delete our MIDI information here. So the first thing I would suggest you to do, we can use the same wavetable synth for this. This is no problem at all. I will just delete this automation real quick. The important thing is that it's not opening up too much, okay? So if we would create a MIDI channel here and let's just drag in some notes here. I think I would do this with this Bastien Léger method I teached you earlier. So let's just put in some random notes here. Just delete some of them. This is completely random. I'm not doing anything here on purpose. And let's transpose them up an octave so it's not that much in our bass range. And now, okay. Now it's okay. It's not opening up that much, but I think it could be even less. Yeah. Okay, so now we're getting into the direction of a background ARP. It's not an ARP at the moment because there's nothing that gets arpeggiated and there's not even the shape of an arpeggio, but this is something we can add now. So let's just loop this section again, go back in here and duplicate this rhythmic theme that we just made up, and let's just have a listen to this real quick. Alright, cool. So I think that already sounds pretty okay. So now to create like a background ARP style, there are a lot of ways you can do it. You know, you can add very complex and varying rhythms and notes there. That's no problem. But the important thing is that it's not too distracting, so the sound is not too open. Okay, so let's just try to make up some little like a little melody ARP idea here, and I will do this by just transposing certain notes. So this one, like, we're just starting on our B. On the 1, I don't know if we want to do this. I think we can be a little bit more syncopated. We can be a little bit more syncopated in the beginning. If we just watch our chords here, so it's a G sharp minor over B, so B is in the bass line and will work as well. And now I'm just clicking in those green notes here, and I'm trying to make not that big steps at this background ARP because I just wanted to not have that much attention. And I think like big leaps and big jumps, they always create a little bit more attention than something that is like more in like a smaller line. So you have a big jump or you have a small line. Cool. So this is why I'm just like try to go with the whole step in the beginning, because as I talked to you earlier on, especially like the human voice, it's really like a lot of pop songs that are just made by either one note, so it's just all the time one note, or like it's 2 or 3 notes that are alternating in rhythm all the time. So we don't need too much pitch variation here. Okay, cool. So with those rules of thumb, let's just leave this note where it is and transpose this one up here, and let's just have a listen to what we have now. Now we can use this note, maybe we can make a little bit higher jump. Okay, I think this note is coming on the 1 here, have a listen. And it's not really groovy, so let's just put this to our syncopated position here. You know, it feels like it's falling down a little bit too hard on this kick there. So let's just here and maybe transpose it up to the D sharp, which is the major third of our B chord. Yeah. And now we can vary this note again. Okay, cool. So let's delete those notes and let's just copy this one over. What would be smart is if we just directly start with our velocity here. So let's start dialing in different velocities here, not emphasizing, like this note here is on a strong downbeat. So let's not emphasize this one, but more like the groovy ones. This one, for example, because it's in the 2nd/16th position of this quarter there. This is also a groovy one, but I want just some variation, that's why I'm not emphasizing that. Okay. There's something missing here. Okay, so now we're just copying over the same pattern again, and this is already some kind of an ARP style background synth right there. I would suggest to make it a little bit more complex in this part, so we have some variance from, compared to this first part here. Maybe just transpose this up again, because, you know, after the first bar is like over, people will have more attention to, okay, what's coming now? Because they're like, we're used to this, every bar something will change, you know? So if the beginning is, the beginning is especially important. Just transposing up in the scale. Make this envelope a little bit pluckier again. Cool, so let's copy that over a couple times until we have our 8 bars filled with our ARP. And now we will adjust the notes accordingly to our root notes that are getting played by the bass line. It's not working out here, like those. And I would, if you're adjusting this, watch out for the notes that are getting played the most. Those are the most important ones, because they're, of course, we'll also have the delay enabled, so the delay will delay those notes more often, so they will make up kind of the core of this ARP sections. So this is the stuff you should watch out for, like those notes here and those notes here, you know? So in this point, this one is not really working out anymore, because we have our like D sharp. I'm just looking on my synth there, because this is not a scale where I'm very familiar in. But as I said, this is like the minor sixth from if we would watch it from our D sharp minor position, from the D sharp minor. If you go to the B, it's it's a minor sixth, and this is a little bit like not such a consonant interval. Consonant intervals, as I said, are octave, of course unison, but we can argue if this is an interval at all. Fifth and thirds, and then fourth are also okay. But what is a little bit like what's super dissonant is of course tritone, half step, whole step, and seventh notes. So major, minor, seventh. All right, so let's transpose those down to the fifth here. We can leave those here because it's a G minor chord right there, and this will be the minor third. All right, so let's do this a little bit more structured now. So let's start with the top note. So this is a G sharp. We're in G sharp minor here. That's perfect. This is a G sharp sus4 over C sharp, so this is working as well. There's a D sharp minor, and the G sharp is like a fourth above it, so we could like transpose this down to the fifth. Yeah, that's working out. So the last one is the G sharp minor, and this is the G sharp, so this is working out pretty well. So this is like how I would go down every line and then adjust all the single notes if there is a problem to them. If you're like now at home and you're watching this and you're thinking by yourself like, man, this sounds good already, then leave it like that. You know, this is really completely up to you. All right, so we have our F sharp here, which is the seventh of our G sharp. And it could work out because it's it's a little bit of a higher note, so it's not in a lower register, which could be clashing that much. But we can try to transpose it up here to our G sharp as well. Oops. What's happening here? Alright, so this works better. So let's watch this notes here. So they have F sharp and it's a G sharp sus4 there over the C sharp. I think this will not work out. We could try to go down on like the third of our C sharp, but this is a note we didn't use at all, so it could be a little bit far out. We will hear. Nope, this is not working. So let's transpose it up to the G sharp as well, or we just leave it where it was. We just leave it there. D sharp, and we watch the D sharp here. Our F sharp is our minor third, so they can stay where they are. And then the last one, we have a F sharp and a G sharp, and this is the 7th of the G sharp. And I mean, it's just playing 2 times, not all the time, so this is why it's working out there as well. Alright, cool, so let's check the next note. So this is a D sharp here. We're in our B bass line and our G sharp minor chord over the bass line kind of a thing. So this will work out because it's the major third of our B chord. We could also transpose this up to the 5th of the B, for example. So now we're at G sharp sus4 over C sharp. This could be a little bit problematic. Maybe we just transpose it down to the C sharp, and now it could be a little bit boring because now we have a lot of repetitions here. So this is always a little bit of a hard decision right there. But it works out pretty well here. Alright, so now we're in a D sharp minor, so this is the D sharp, this works out there. And then we get into our G sharp minor. The 5th of a G sharp minor is the D sharp minor, so this can also stay where it is. Great, so next note, I think we don't have to adjust them, they're just like notes that are just being played like in the middle, they're just making a little bit of movement. So these ones are going to be the more important ones now, and I think we already fixed them in the beginning, but let's do it again. So this is a B, this will work out. It's either the root note of the B major chord, zack, 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 or it's the 3rd of the G sharp minor chord. So this is why it's working out here in both ways. We could even start to like transpose down some notes on the G here to give it a little bit more, G sharp, sorry, to give it a little bit more variation. I think this is working out pretty well. Okay, so if you want to add more dreaminess to your sound, feel free just to use a lot of echo and reverb on your stuff, okay? So we'll just put another one in here, another echo, right after the first one. And now we can play a little bit with our times there, here and there, just to make it really cloudy and backgroundish, not too distinctible. So let's just hit play and see what we can come up with. So now, if you want to make it more stereo, I would suggest ping pong. With the stereo mode, it seems more like an entity. With the ping pong, it's more like off, but more stereo as well. So this is just, you want to go more stereo, you want to have it more as a entity. So now it's not making too much sense because it's just exactly the same rhythm that is playing from this delay compared to this delay. Let's just use maybe a dotted fourth note. Maybe increase the feedback a little bit more. Can add some reverb. Maybe just decrease envelope 2 mode again. Just use this velocity here a little bit more. Let's just add some sidechain compression real quick, so we have a little bit more groove. Alright, so now what's pretty cool is if you open up the frequency just a little bit. Now this quarter dotted note, it really delays all of that along for a very long time. Maybe we just try not the dotted mode, but the normal note one. Also a cool effect. So you can really use this for your advance. If you want to make a little bit more trippy stuff, just open it. Just increasing the envelope 2 amount again. Maybe we want some fluffiness back. Pretty cool. Pretty cool. Yep, we're in the right direction. We're going into the right direction. So, of course, there's no super clean border between whether you have a main lead ARP or you have a background ARP. So we could also use this ARP here, and if we open it up a lot more, it would be a main lead ARP again. So just be aware of the primary and secondary aspects of your patches. So if you want to make it a main lead ARP, open it up. It has to be audible. It has to be upfront. If you want, you can use exactly the same notes, but close down the whole filter and it will be a background ARP then. And of course, what is interesting is that developing out of a background ARP into a main lead ARP. So if we would watch our arrangement, let me just put in a loop here with some hi-hats. So we have some hi-hat loop. Let's just go to our PML sample packs. Let's just turn down the volume a little bit. So I'm just trying to like imitate some arrangement. Okay, not what I'm searching for. Nope, 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 nope. Let's just go with my Organica here. Let's use some... yeah, why not? Alright, perfect. So I think like I just want the first 2 notes. So we're just imitating like an off-hat coming in. I think this quarter echo here on our background ARP is a little bit too much. Alright, so what I wanted to show you is, so you have your ARP here, right? And now you're starting pretty low, like, and with low I mean no highs, pretty filtered, pretty chill. No, somewhere in the background. So now you can transform this background ARP into a main melody ARP real quick. If you want, you don't have to. By just opening up a filter, for example. And you know this tail, this makes it really interesting. So play around with effects. Please, please play around with effects. Very important. Alright, so this could be like one example for a background ARP, which would be pretty complex. So why not trying a different one that's a little bit more simple? So let's just create another MIDI track, mute our background synth, call this background 2, and now we'll insert a wavetable synth again. This is a pretty nice synth, except that you cannot automate the envelope 2 amount, but that's something they should fix, in my opinion, from Ableton. Who am I to complain? Alright, so what is also pretty common in background ARP style synth lines is that they have a very distinct and very simple melodic line there. It's really, really simple, and it's playing throughout the whole track. So let's create something like that. And this, when I mean simple, I really mean simple. So we just create another MIDI clip, drag this here. So we have a longer MIDI clip that fits our 8-bar loop. And now we can just create like starting on our B. And now I would just like stick to the B major chord here at this moment. Let's just loop this section. I think what's boring now is that we have like the same note here and there. Let's transpose this whole background ARP up an octave. And I think a sine wave works pretty good here. Let's just decrease the amp decay time of the amp envelope. Something like that could work out, for example. And this could be something that's playing through the whole track. And then you would just use reverb and delay to make it more spacey. Really distorted eighth rhythm, it's great. Use it everywhere. A little bit of reverb. I think sine waves, they work out pretty well for this kind of background ARPs. You can just copy over the sidechain compression here. Just something to fill up our background. So this could be one very simple example. And I think the rule of thumb is here, don't use too much like the same notes. If you want to have it a little bit more interesting, and I think you shouldn't go like out of the range of an octave there, because then it will sound super out of space and super complex. And I think this is not something we necessarily want there. We just want something that feels trippy and it's just staying the same all the time. What is important there is, you have this changing you have this changing harmonic content, like your chords and your bass line and all that stuff. So it can help to focus on some notes that are working well with all of your chords. So for example, to the pentatonic scale or something like that, okay? So you can enable the pentatonic scale also on the left side in your scale drop-down menu. Where is it? PP pentatonic, minor pentatonic. So now you can see that this note wasn't in the pentatonic scale, and now it gets really easy. So if we just delete all those notes again, now we can super randomly just start putting in some notes. And it's already working out. And if this is too boring for you, I can understand you. And you can just duplicate the loop and just start adjusting those notes and just make a little bit of a different theme. Funny what the resonance does there. Maybe we'll add a little bit of more reverb decay time. low cut it. So we get like this really like padish style and feel to it. If you make it too short, it won't be recognizable anymore. Also cool if you like increase the decay time here. This is something we could automate. So even our background ARP will create some tension and some movement. You can also do this by just adding in an LFO. There's this MIDI effect here. So you just click map and then you go to your decay time, and now you can see it's opening up the decay time accordingly to the sinus wave, and you can shape the sinus wave exactly as you want. I would suggest going down with the rate a little bit and with the depth, so it's, you know, not making too crazy changes all the time. Maybe a little bit slower. Okay, so now you can set the boundaries, because now it's getting too short. So I don't want like the 0, it's the minimum, and the 100% here, it's the maximum. So you can just, you know, you can even see it. You can say, okay, my minimum shouldn't get any shorter than 200 milliseconds or something like that. So this is pretty cool, so just to add a little bit of interest. You can apply this to everything. You can make it really trippy, you know, just add another one, add it to like this. Now it's, of course, way too fast. Well, alright, guys and girls, this was it for the so far main lead ARP / background section of this ARP course. I hope I could help you out with some of my methods and with the approach I have. And really, I think this is the most important one, as I really want to stress this again. Find your own style of making your ARPs work in the way you want it. So, and this is something to keep in mind. So if you have a track where your ARP is working out super nicely, then just go inside and then you think, okay, what did I make there? Maybe it's the sound, maybe it's the fluffiness of the envelope, maybe it's the randomness of the notes that are getting played. So you can develop very consciously your own style out of also analyzing your own tracks and just recreating that. And then you can, of course, you can just, you know, pick your whole like instruments here, just selecting all, Command G, and then saving this as a, you know, so far style ARP patch. And then you can put this in your next track and you will directly have the sound. So a lot of my friends are working like this, and it really helps your workflow. So yeah, so far so good. And then I would say see you in the next chapter of this small ARP course part of this whole series, where we are going to have a look at some question and answer ARP style melodies. Looking forward. See you. Hey people, I'm very happy to be back. Now, as I promised, with a little bit of a different dress, but I thought I over-exaggerate a little bit and be a bit more fancy when we're coming to the fancy stuff, which is, creating melodies. In melodic house, of course, melody is one of the biggest things there, and that's why I tried to recreate some of the top artists at the moment. As I told you earlier, our team from PML and me, we teamed up, and then we spoke about like which artists are, the biggest ones and the ones with the nicest melodies, and we came up with a lot of great artists. But for this session we picked 4 different examples, which are one is from Ben Böhmer. It's the Breathing track with Malou and Niels Hoffmann. The other one is from Tim Green, Tears. It's his top track at the moment. And the other 2 are from like more young artists. Solanka is his name, and I was also referencing him in one of the previous videos. So one of his tracks, From Afar, we're going to have a look at and a listen at that track. The other track is called Great Belt. Yeah, so before I make my introduction, why not have a listen into all the different tracks? Yeah, so those are copies of the originals, and I didn't try to get too close to them, but I think like the general vibe is being transported. So let's have a listen to the Ben Böhmer track first. And you can already hear this triplet feel, and we're going to work with triplets here, which is pretty interesting, I think. Alright, so that's the Ben Böhmer track. The next one is the one from Tim Green. Of course, it's just always a snippet. That's how it sounds. And of course, obviously, it's about this syncopated dum 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 melody there. So let's listen to the next track. This one is the one from Solanka, From Afar. So that's that track, and the last one is also from Solanka called Great Belt. And it's about this melody there. Alright, so melodies and arps and how are they connected? So I think the biggest difference between an arpeggio and an arp is that, like, an arpeggio is as well a melody, but a melody is not necessarily an arp. An arp is a melody that repeats over time and all the time. That's the greatest difference between an arp and a melody. And I like the approach to, like, come from an arp and then go to a melody. I think this can lead to pretty cool results. And what I mean by that is, if you have, like, your arpeggio MIDI notes with the right harmony right away, that's pretty cool, because then you can start, you know, just reverse engineering and building your melody like that. This is like a similar approach to the one that we've seen Sebastian Leger doing, what I told you about. He's just like painting in a couple of notes and then randomly deleting some. So it's easier to take stuff away than sometimes to put stuff in. If you're like in front of a blank paper, maybe you know that feeling. So first of all, we are going to find out the chords of those tracks. I mean, I already figured them out, but I think I will just show you how I would do it and what's the most easy way. And then we will build a little arp, and from that arp on, in the Ben Böhmer style track, we will build a melody. So let's start with the Ben Böhmer track. Let's just open it up here, and maybe we will have a listen to this main melody again, which is this one. So it's the same basically. So this is one of the results we're going to get creating this. Let's find out the chords of this track. Alright, so I just recreated the bass line here, and it's pretty easy actually. So we just put a tuner here. So we have an E here. E in the bass means this is pretty surely E minor chord there. Alright, E minor to G, and this will be a G major in this case. Then we have a B minor chord here, and an A major chord, I think. Alright, so this gives us the tonality of B minor. Why B minor and not E minor, for example? Because with this A major chord here in the end, we need a C sharp, and we only have a C sharp in our B minor scale. So we know our chords now. So let's just create a MIDI track right here, insert it in our group, and let's call this ARP. So we're going to create everything from scratch, of course. So let's insert a wavetable synth here, and now we will set it up basically by adjusting the amp at first, just increase the release time here a little bit. And I mean, I can set it up blindly, and I think I know how it will sound like, but maybe it's easier for you if we start by just creating some MIDI notes here. So I will just like put in here like a basic E. Now let's just duplicate this over. And now we can just work in our first bar here. Alright, so now there's the first problem. We are in a triplet grid here, okay? So the important thing is that you don't do it as I did, but you enable the triplet grid here, and then you right click again and choose 1/8 notes here, okay? So now when we dial in those MIDI notes, they are in sync, because this whole track was made in triplets, which I think is a pretty interesting way of producing. And listen to it. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, da, 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 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And I've heard it in a couple of other tracks too. For example, from maybe you know Monkey Man, he's making super nice crossover indie electronic deep house music, and he's doing it as well. So this is why I picked this example, so we have a little bit of variance and we're not only working in straight 16th and 8th rhythms. Alright, so now that we've set it up our timing correctly, let's continue and go back to our wavetable synth. Let's enable the channel again. So now I would suggest picking a saw wave here. Let's just deactivate this other main melody. Let's just close down the filter. Let's go to the matrix here in this drop-down menu. And now let's increase the envelope 2 amount on the filter frequency. So now envelope 2 will open up the filter. You don't have to go to mod sources here and then go to envelope 2. You can directly click here and then you will be at envelope 2. This is a small hack that I've discovered actually by doing this video. Alright, so let's drag down our second envelope so it gets really tight. Let's just drop down the volume a little bit. Alright, so now you can either stay with like 12 dB slope or you can do a 24 dB slope. This really doesn't matter at all. This is just up to you, so it's more of a secondary aspect right here. Gets more plucky if you close it with a 24 dB slope. Alright, so I think we can start working with that sound from our wavetable point of view, but as you know, I like to start with my effects on directly, so let's just go and select an echo here. And now we have to watch out, because by default I said, like in the last video I said that per default it's a pretty nice setting, but not if we're working in triplets, because now it won't delay our sound in a triplet feel. It will be dotted, but even the dotted feeling is a more straight feeling, and this will clash with the hi-hat and the bass, and because those elements are playing triplets. You can already hear it's not working. So if we go down here and change this to triplet, now it's grooving again, and then we just decrease the dry and wet amount here, because we don't need it to be that wet. And now let's also change the stereo setting here to ping pong, because then we'll get a really nice stereo feel. Alright, perfect. We can even increase this reverberation here. So in the end of our delay, it will like fade into a reverb. Let's increase the dry and wet a little bit. Now you can start hearing it. Alright, perfect. So without further patching, let's go and create a little bit of an arp here, from which we will create according notes to the harmony, and then we will create a melody out of this arp notes. Let's just drag this loop, let's open it up here. So now we don't want to fold those notes here, but what we want to do is we want to enable the scale mode here. And as we said earlier, this track is in B minor, so let's go and select B minor as a scale here. And this brings us some really nice visual representation. Now we can, just dial in the notes easier. So let's go and create a nice arp with an upward motion. By an upward motion, I just mean that all those melody notes, they would just increase here. Alright, so now we've made our first 3 notes, and then we can just delete those and duplicate this over. So now you can either go, you can just go in smaller steps like I did, or you can even go in higher steps. This is totally up to you, but we're in E minor at that point, so E, F sharp and G will work out pretty well, because the E, of course, it's the root note of our chord, and the G, it's the third of our chord. Alright, so let's have a listen. Cool, so now let's just copy this over. Now we're at the G major chord. Actually, Ben Böhmer is playing a lot with suspended chords, so this means just like sus2 and sus4 chord. And I think that at this point in his original track, there's something like a G sus2 chord going on there, which means he has a triad or he hasn't got a triad in there, or like his third of the chord, it's maybe it's in there, I don't know, but he's emphasizing also the ninth of from the root note, or the the whole step above the G. So this is why we can maybe even like take those 4 notes here and transpose them up to the A. Could sound pretty cool. So now G and F sharp, they will clash for sure, because they're just a half step apart from each other. So let's transpose this 1/2 step up here. And the E, it's also not very ideal, and it's not ideal because I want to have it like really nicely harmonic. So let's transpose this down to the D here. Cool, so let's pick this whole part and duplicate it. Alright, so let's continue with our next chord, which is the B minor, and I like to just, go through every layer here. A layer, the G layer, the D layer, and we can adjust every layer accordingly. So the A can go up to the B, because this is the root note of our chord. The G can go down to the F sharp, because this is the 5th of our B minor chord. And the D can just stay where it is, because it's the minor 3rd of the B minor chord. Alright, so now we just have to adjust the last chord, and I think this is like a pretty cool way of building up your arpeggios, because you can make the voice leading very smooth. Voice leading means that like each voice, so top voice, middle voice, lowest voice, you can really control where they are going, and you can, for example, like this one is now going up here and then going up here, so it's pretty smooth. It's not making like a super big change at that moment, which is pretty cool if you can control it, because we have access to all the different notes and we're not like playing an arpeggiator with a MIDI effect, for example. Alright, so let's continue with our last chord, the A major chord here. B won't work out, because it could work out, could even be interesting, because it's also the sus2 or the 9th of the A, but I think we will go with the A here. But we will try it out in a second. This F could be going down to the E, which is the 5th of the A major chord. And now we can just go down 1/2 step with our D here to the 3rd of the A major chord, which is the C sharp. So let's have a listen. I'll just open the chords up a little bit. Maybe we can really stay up here with our last arp. Maybe even go higher in the end to the 3rd. So now you can already hear, you can do so much stuff. Okay, cool. But now we've built it, like we have our basic building blocks for our melody. We've just made an arp, and now we're going to have a look at how we can transform this arp into a nice melody. Alright, so what is the difference between arp and a melody? I already told you in the beginning. It's just that it's not playing all of the time. So I will just duplicate this MIDI information over here, so we keep it and we can use it later on. Now I will pretty randomly just delete a couple of notes here in the second part of our first bar. So let's do that. And now let's have a short listen. And now it already feels more like a melodic theme and less like an arpeggio, even though the notes are in the style of an arpeggio, okay? And now we could do this everywhere, and then we had a really, really like simple theme there that's repeating over time. Let's just increase the volume a little bit. Alright, this can already be a small melodic theme, but of course we want to make this a lot more interesting than it is at the moment. So why is it not interesting at the moment? It's not interesting at the moment because of several reasons. This is always the same, so we have this bum bum bum, and it's repeating in the exact same way afterwards. And then we have the exact same motion, and by motion I mean like those 3 notes are going up and here they're going up again. And they're all starting here on the 1, and exactly the same thing is happening here again, and here again, and here again. So this is kind of boring because it's super predictable. So it's also kind of satisfying, and this is something that can be a little bit tricky when writing melodies. You want to make something that sounds familiar, but you don't want to create something that sounds boring and predictable. So this is something you have to find out by yourself, and of course you have to find out by yourself what kind of melodies and arps you like, but I want to just give you some tools at hand so you can find out. Alright, so what do? I would say let's just start alternating some of those notes and just also get rid of some. So let's get rid of the second one. I'm just randomly getting rid of some here. And we could say, okay, let's get rid of the second one here again. It would make it maybe a little bit boring, but also satisfying. So let's have a listen. Alright, so this already makes it a little bit more interesting. So let's just start alternating those notes in the second part of our first melody part here, which is this one. Alright, so we know that we are in E minor, so the notes that we can pick are, of course, all of the notes of the scale, and I don't want to give you any rule about what note you should use, because if it sounds good for you, please stick to it, okay? This is nothing I will tell you. But there are some notes that will sound better than others. So there are consonant notes and there are dissonant notes. Or let's say not notes, but intervals, because one note cannot be dissonant. It's just like the whole thing, the summing of all the notes that can sound more consonant, more dissonant, which is totally there's no good or bad in consonants or dissonance, okay? It's just an effect. So people like film composers, they use dissonance all the time. And we can even use it in our compositions. So, as I said earlier, consonant intervals are the 8th, which is the octave, the 5th, and the 3rd. And where do you know from which interval we're going up from or down from? Well, this is an E minor chord. So now we're looking at those notes from the perspective of the E. So the E is the root note of our chord and the most stable one. So from the E, a 5th will be the B and a 3rd will be the G. So E, G, and B, they will be the notes that will sound most stable. Stable also means boring, okay? We can decide if we want to stay on a more stable note or if we want to go to a more unstable note. Okay, so let's go up to a also very stable note, which is the B here. And melody-wise, it makes sense that you don't make too big steps here, which is in this case a little bit hard because we can either keep this smaller step here, or we can transpose the F sharp up to the A, and then we have a smaller step between those notes, but a bigger step between those notes. So we can also just start by adjusting this note going up. And now our melody line here is just a half step, and this is just a 3rd up here, which is a less of a jump than an E, which we had here. So let's have a listen. So this, for example, is a super huge jump here. So if we want to adjust this melody a little bit, we'll just drag it down and maybe don't make it that boring. And with boring, I mean there are those two notes repeating here again and those two notes. So this is, yeah, it's also okay, but I just want to show you a way to make it a little bit more interesting. Cool, so let's just transpose this note up here. And now we're in bar 3, which means we're in B minor. The D will be a very stable note there, the F sharp as well. And the B, of course. So we can start transposing this note up here. We have a kind of a big jump here, but we will hear how it sounds like. Alright, so this jump here is again super huge. So let's just try to be a little bit more calm there. Let's transpose this down to an A, which will sound pretty good because it's the root note of the A major chord. Alright, so now we have our pretty similar motions in our first one, this one, and the third one. And the second and fourth one, they're not so closely related to each other, but they have both, the lowest note it's getting repeated 2 times. So we kind of have an A-B thing. A-B, A-B. Alright, so to create a little bit more of a sparkle, I would like to have one note that pops out a little bit more, okay? And I think it could be a note here in the 3rd bar, or starting, in the 3rd bar. But this can be wherever you want. So I think melody shape-wise, there should be one highlight. There shouldn't be highlights all the time, but if you have one highlight, it can really stick out more. So let's try to make a note that is a little bit higher than the other ones there, which will create this highlight. Cool, so now we're in our B minor chord section here, and now let's try to get up to this D, which is the minor 3rd of our B, which will sound good. And now I think we should transpose all notes up. And so now we're coming from this A here in the second bar, dropping down. Now it's an F that cannot work out. We're in B minor, so we should drop down to a D, but then we have a huge jump here. All right, well, let's have a listen. I will just increase the feedback of the echo a little bit, so with more tail. Yes, that's good. Let's increase the release of the amp a little bit. All right, cool. So I think what's a little bit too predictable at the moment is that we have we have a lot of motion every time the bar, each new bar starts. So first bar, we have something going on like a run, and then we have a run in the second bar and the third and the fourth. So what we can do to get rid of this is just deactivating like a lot of notes in our second and our fourth bar. Because now we're getting into the realms of question and answer or call and response. Now we have something that is calling, which is this part. And we have a part that is responding just with one note, but it's still responding. Okay, that's very important. And then we have a call again, slightly different than the first call we had, but still this kind of the same response as in the first one. So call and response. Just to lose a couple of words about call and response. Call and response originated, and I'm not an expert on this, but this is how I understood it from African music, but not only African music, also from like a more of like African lifestyle, which was like people were discussing in their community something. So one was like yelling something, like a question, and then everyone was reacting either positive or negative to it. So the point I want to make is call and response, question and answer, it's deeply rooted in our human behavior. So we're always searching for question and answer and call and response in music automatically, like our brain does it. That's something I read online. So just giving away a little bit information that I collected by myself. So the brain is always searching for call and response, and why not giving the brain call and response, because it will sound pretty cool. Another thing to make call and response work well is that the call needs to be, so call and response is deeply rooted in our brains, and humans are like by nature searching for it everywhere they can. So why not giving those brains, the goodie, and creating some nice call and response. So how do we create some nice call and response? Call and response, they need to be a little different. So the more different like your answer is to your question, the bigger, of course, the difference will be between those two, and the higher the effect will be. So this is something that will happen right now, because we have a call in the beginning, and this is getting like more into like a style-wise advice now, because how you want to structure your call or your response or your question or your answer, this is totally up to you. Do you want to have like a super busy call and a very, very simple response? That's up to you, you know, even in melodic house. I have the feeling that in general melodic house, if you watch Ben Böhmer or if you listen to Ben Böhmer, he is like very spare calls and responses, so there's nothing too crazy going on there all the time. But there are some call and response pattern, even sometimes between, like there's the call and then like some chord or some percussion is giving the response. And this is something that happens also like in more up-tempo, techno-ish style productions, where you have like a rat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat, and then you have a percussion that is like you know, so they're like imitating and speaking with each other. I think you know some tracks that go like that. All right, so in this example, we have our call here. Let's listen again. And now we're just answering with one note. Let's open up the frequency a little bit more. And we can put the synth to mono here, so we can increase the release time, and it's not mudding up with the other notes, because there's only one voice that can be played at a time. just increase the decay time of the second envelope a little bit more and also the release time. Make it a little bit smoother. Alright, so this is a pretty easy example of question and answer, and it is pretty close to the one that I showed you in the